Welcome to another edition of the Invisible Wheelchair Podcast. I'm Don Grodoff. Along with my wife Gina, we have a practice called Focused Healthy Family, helping families get past the behavior and anxiety issues naturally. We also produce the Invisible Wheelchair Podcast, where we are advocates for our own family and others dealing with OCD and anxiety. In the Invisible Wheelchair Podcast, we do interviews, provide resources, and information for treatment and support of OCD recovery. We also want to hear from you, your comments, and if you want to tell your story, we want to put it up on the podcast, on our Stories from the OCD side. Our goal in these podcasts is to raise awareness of and advocate for the recovery from obsessive-compulsive disorder, better known as OCD. Sponsoring our podcast is Quintessential Biosciences, better known as Q Sciences. Gina and I learned the hard way when we realized our daughter's supplements weren't being absorbed properly, and she really wasn't getting the nutrients that she needed. We knew the power of quality supplements in our health of our family, so it was time to find a better product. That is when we were introduced to Q Sciences. Q Sciences products provide the highest quality, maximum absorption possible, and improved health for the body and mind. Products like hemp oil, sleep spray, and Kids Focus convinced us that they really make a difference in our family's health. You too can have a healthy family, so stop wasting your money on supplements that don't work. Check out Q Science products today at qscience.focusedhealthyfamily.com. That's the letter Q, sciences.focusedhealthyfamily.com. You can also find the link on the invisiblewheelchair.com front page. Now, let's get to that podcast. On this off-the-cuff podcast, Gina and I did a 6-part series with the Short and Sweet Parenting Tips podcast, dealing with how to manage anxiety during the pandemic. And now today, we're going to give you the first 3 of those episodes. Again, as the name says, it's short and sweet, so here they are.
The sun is shining, the sky is blue. It's time for Short and Sweet Parenting Tips.
Hello, Short and Sweet Parenting Tips here. We are talking about anxiety during COVID, and I'd like to welcome our guests, Dawn and Gina Grodoff from the Focused Healthy Family Practice. Dawn is an EFT tapping practitioner, and Gina is an occupational therapist. So they combine their skills to help families not only change behaviors, but also minimize anxiety and increase the health of their family. Don also hosts a podcast called Invisible Wheelchair, where he unlocks the hidden mind of OCD and anxiety and advocates for positive recovery. So that's kind of what we're talking about, how to minimize stress during COVID by improving communications. So welcome, you two.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Oh, I appreciate you, your expertise in talking about anxiety during COVID. I mean, we've passed the 1-year anniversary.
Yes.
Yes, and hopefully keep going in that in a good direction. With
boy, no kidding, no kidding. Who knew? Now, do you guys want to share anything more about your backgrounds?
Well, I mean, we basically work with families trying to help them through behavior and anxiety issues, and do it in a more natural way.
Yeah, we've had kids with serious anxiety issues, and so part of the reason we're into this is wanting to help other parents. But right now, everybody's dealing with some anxiety issues.
Kids themselves, even if they're not in the situation we're in, they still don't understand it, and they're hearing all this news about it and all the fear that's going on around it. That too causes a lot of stress.
But they can't always verbalize what they're stressed about, and we might assume it's one thing and it's really not that. It's another aspect of it.
Well, that's what we talk about in our practice. Behavior is a foreign language. And what that means is that the behavior really is another means of communication, which is what we're talking about, that just is trying to tell of a deeper problem, the underlying problem. And I think that's one thing that we try to help families understand, that it's not really the behavior necessarily that needs to change, but you need to look at what's underneath
what's
it.
causing the behavior, right? Kids don't just act out just to make us annoyed, even though it feels like that. There's a reason for their behavior. And just like a baby, you'd watch a baby and their behavior, and you can tell when they're hungry, when they're tired. When kids are acting out, that their behavior is not acceptable, we need to look at the reasons, what's going on, what need is not being met. Because that's really addressing those issues is really what changes the behavior. It's in the workshop we're doing right now, it's all about communication, learning new tools to be able to practice these skills, to develop new habits in your communication.
Yeah, and if you all would like to send me that link, I'm happy to put it on the Short and Sweet Tips Facebook page if you're interested in me sharing that.
Yeah, we have another one coming up in April.
We're just about to conclude one. They're 6-week workshops, as we've been doing 2 hours a night for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, this last class was actually on praise.
Oh, yes.
And
wow.
What's really amazing about, we don't think about as parents that praise could be detrimental, or could go the wrong way.
Right.
And so in this, we talk about the fact of, and I'll give you the example of what, we are quick a lot of times to say good job or good boy or good girl about when they do something. The trouble with that is that the next day, if they're not the good boy or the good girl, it just negates that whole thought. Versus what we teach in it is to describe what they do instead of going after like their character. So
rather than using evaluating words, you describe, Mom, do you like my picture? I see that you took the time to draw details of the flower and the grass. And the idea is that they in turn then praise themselves. Because what other people think is not really what matters, right? We know this as adults, that what matters is what we think of ourselves. And if kids are constantly seeking that approval from others, it fosters that idea that other people have to approve of me, versus recognizing their skills and their abilities. And then they're able to say, oh yeah, I'm a good drawer. I'm good at this.
Oh, that's huge, because adults have a problem with that.
Oh, yeah. So many of us are seeking approval all the time in so many ways.
Oh yeah, that's half the clients I work with, and that's what they're dealing with. Is they're trying to build their life on everybody else instead of on themselves, and that's we work on changing that. But that praise one was one that always just kind of amazed me. I had never thought about that, so.
Yeah, because at least for me as a parent, I'm trying to send my girls out of the nest with as few pieces of baggage as possible.
You can relate. Because as adults, we spend time having to uncover all that and deal with that. And
now, on the same thought though around that is one of the things I believe in is contrast. In our life, we have to understand some of the bad to really understand the good. Does that, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I don't want to be so paranoid as a parent not to make mistakes around my child.
Right.
But the big part of it is in communication and dealing and showing them how I can get past my mistake, how I can change my mistake, how I can get out of a bad and get into a good. So we give them by example.
And how we act is really what teaches our children. We can lecture at them, you need to do this, you need to do this, but they're really learning from how we're interacting with the world. So when we make a mistake and they see, oh, Mom made a mistake, Mom apologized for it, and now Mom's doing this, they're learning, because life is going to have challenges, right? And what better way to learn to deal with those as a child in a safe environment, and learning these skills from an early age.
I love what you said about apologizing, because I feel like that is new to my parenting generation. And I do recognize how important it is to model that to our kids too.
Sure, because everybody wants their kids to say you're sorry when they do something wrong. But we make mistakes with our kids. We need to show them we can apologize because we're human and we're going to make mistakes too.
Well, and it goes into respect then. And that's a big part.
I love
That's
it.
a big philosophy of what backs our whole practice, our program, everything is respect. And it's two-way street. It's not just you have to respect me because I'm a parent. We also have to respect that they're little humans,
That they are individuals, right?
Yeah.
If you want your children to respect, it's important you give them respect.
So respect is what we'll be talking about next week when we continue this interview with Dawn and Gina Grodhoff from Focused Healthy Family. See you all next week on Short and Sweet Parenting Tips, fresh ideas in bite-sized portions.
So now, part 2 of this series on dealing with anxiety during a pandemic and respect.
Hey, Short and Sweet Parenting Tips here with episode 2 in the series giving parents tools to reduce anxiety during COVID. Today we're talking about respect, and we have Dawn and Gina Grodhoff here from Focused Healthy Family. Welcome back, you guys.
Good to be here.
Yeah, thank you. We enjoy this.
Last week we covered a bit of an overview, but I feel like respect is pretty foundational too.
What backs our whole practice, our program, everything is respect. And it's two-way street. It's not just you have to respect me because I'm a parent. We also have to respect that they're little humans,
That they are individuals, right?
Yeah.
If you want your children to respect, it's important you give them respect. And how important that is. I know when we were growing our practice together, Don asked me in one word, what would you say is most important about our philosophy? And I said respect, because if it boils down to that, if you don't have respect for your child, well, how can you expect them to have a respect for you and others?
Well, and then that the communication is one beautiful way to be able to do that too,
Mm-hmm.
is learning to communicate with them can build that respect and that relationship with your child.
And I feel like that's something kind of new, is that we respect our kids also, and that demanding respect is not the way to get it from our kids. What do you guys think?
This goes back through layers of the way things are done, and that's kind of what we work on, trying to change that pattern, to start recognizing the things we are saying and doing that really don't work. And it's only because it's habit, or that it's something that, I always talk about hearing my mom's voice come out of me, and I go, well, where did that come from? But that's the kind of thing we have to kind of work on changing, because not everything my mom said to me was the best thing for me.
Right. That goes for all of us. But even if I'm intentional about it, I still repeat those patterns.
And it's sort of a habit. We're in the habit, just like Don talked about, habits of, how we were parented, and those things happen automatically. We need to practice new skills to be able to do different. We can have the intention, I'm going to listen better with my kids. It's a new skill that has to be learned, and you have to retrain your brain to approach things in a new way.
Start building a relationship with them, so that throughout your whole life, you've got a really good back and forth relationship, good communication, all of that.
I feel like a lot of parents, they build their relationship by trying to be their kid's best friend. And they think that is what is going to create that friendship long term. And so I just feel like it's counterintuitive to think, okay, if I'm trying so hard to be my kid's best friend now at 5 years old, that's not how to parent them in the long run, so that when they move out of the house, they're still going to want to have a relationship with me. Did I explain that?
I think part of that comes from the old authoritarian style of parenting. Do what I, say, not what I do. Being lectured at, being told, be quiet, should listen but not speak, and all those kind of ideas. I think it's sort of rejection of that people go to the opposite extreme, right? But we're also, a best friend is going to say, oh yeah, your mom, my mom did this and I'm so angry at her. They're going, oh yeah, your mom sucks. And, and they have that kind of relationship that's at the same level, right? So we can have a relationship with our kids and have a connection and do things that we enjoy together, but it's different I think it's sort of just that dichotomy. If I don't want to be like that, and then people are out there thinking I need to be my kid's friend, it's like, well, are you trying to get approval from your child?
Yeah.
Because you didn't have, what's going on there? What's the underlying thing there? Because it's, I hear that being a friend with your kid, I hear both sides of it, and to me, it really boils down to the respect part, and helping to foster and facilitate things with them. You are the adult. You do, make the final decisions. You're the one responsible to financially for them. So it's not a friend to friend situation.
Well, I mean, when we're dealing like with my oldest daughter and the OCD, we went through some really rough stuff with her. I mean, and she was really young. And what I had to learn there is that I can be firm, but I can also have compassion with that. That she taught me that, because at first it was very hard for me not to be coming right back at her with stuff.
Right.
So I think that's kind of what this idea of a relationship is that we're still parents. We still, we can be firm with them. We still have to make decisions with them, and we can be compassionate about it because they're a child. It doesn't mean that we're on the same level with them as far as friendship. That's very different.
Right. But there's nothing wrong with entering your child's world. Our youngest is into Minecraft and different video games, and it's like, it may not be what I enjoy, but I can spend a half an hour and let them explain it to me and maybe try to play the game. And it's really a way of communicating. Like, like if your spouse says, I love tennis, will you play with me? Well, you might go out and do it once and say, okay, this isn't my thing, but I'm going to engage with you. And so you can do that with your kids with activities, right? So to me, that's different than.
And it's because the foundation was set.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad you said respect, because I feel like if a parent isn't acting like a parent, is there respect? If the parent's not respecting their own role, is the kid going to respect the parent? And I also think about, and maybe you all could speak to this more than I can, there's security and boundaries for our kids.
Yes, there is, especially if they're dealing with extra anxiety, that, we want to give our kids freedom to make choices and have independence. And yet, yes, just like routines are calming. So yeah, having some structure, we all need a little bit of that, and that can be helpful for kids. And what you said before sparked something in me about respect with our kids. I've known parents who they go to the park and the kid wants to keep playing, and they stay and they play. So there's also a point where if you're not respecting your own needs and you're letting your kids' needs come first and trump yours, then what are you teaching your kids? That my kids matter more than me.
Oh, that's huge.
You've got to take care of yourself too. So it's a mutual thing. Well, you really want to do this. I need to do this. How can we make this work for both of us? You have to let your kids know what your needs are too, right? You don't want to ignore that. Again, that's one of those things that the kids are going to learn from you. If you're not doing self-care, if you're not taking care of your body, if you're not doing exercise, if you're not taking time to do what you enjoy, right? You're just going to work and you hate your job and, you're begrudging, that's what you're passing on to your kids.
I think logically we know that, but as moms, it's very difficult to live it out.
Well, yeah, because you get busy. There's things that have to be done. You got to feed the kids. You got to get the laundry done. You got to do the grocery shopping. For a lot of people, they said they enjoyed the aspect of the pandemic they've enjoyed is, being forced to be at home. And, like all of a sudden, and now I have more time because these other activities have been shut down, right? And so it's set them up in this new environment, and they're pointing out all the positives from the experience. With our kids, we can overschedule them with, you got your music lesson, you got your soccer, and you got all this you've got to do, and not having enough time in your day to just relax and enjoy
and sacrificing family time. And I'm hoping that a lesson coming out of COVID is to see the value of family time and that white space in your schedule. But my white space has gone out the window. I'm like, it's COVID. Why am I so busy?
Yeah, you get busy in a new way, right?
Yeah, right. So I guess next week we'll come back to discuss communication, which is really the focus of your practice, right?
We've always, our belief is that Communication can either be a driver of anxiety or a reducer of anxiety, depending on how you do it. And we work on the reducing side of it.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I don't think anyone's immune to anxiety right now, not with COVID.
No, not at all.
Thanks everyone for joining us for this week's parenting tip on how parents can use respect to reduce anxiety. We'll see you next week for more fresh ideas in bite-sized portions.
And now on to part 3 of our series about dealing with anxiety during the pandemic. And now we're talking about communication.
Well, today on Short and Sweet Parenting Tips, we continue our series on reducing anxiety, and today we're talking about communication. Dawn and Gina Grodhoff from Focused Healthy Family are here again, and their entire practice centers on improving communication. So that's what we're talking about today.
Well, I mean, we basically work with families trying to help them through behavior and anxiety issues and do it in a more natural way.
Yeah, we had kids with serious anxiety issues. And so part of the reason we're into this is wanting to help other parents. But right now, everybody's dealing with some anxiety issues. And, realizing how important communicating is to help those people.
We've always, our belief is that communication can either be a driver of anxiety or a reducer of anxiety, depending on how you do it. And we work on the reducing side of it.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And I don't think anyone's immune to anxiety right now, not with COVID.
No, not at all.
Especially with parents, but I know people who don't have kids and aren't homeschooling, and their nerves are racked too.
Well, yeah. You can only take so much sequestering,
Right.
We are social people.
Yeah.
Yes. And now we're all stuck at home, with our kids, for those people who usually went to work and their kids went to school. And so communicating is always important, but it's even more important, in that environment of being there with them all day long and really thinking intentionally about how we're talking to each other, because it really has a big impact.
Right. Being intentional. We talk a lot about that. My husband and I he was a guest on my podcast, and we talked about being intentional and how important that was to the health of the family. So let's dig in. So what is your maybe number one suggestion on communication lowering anxiety?
Well, our workshop is based on the book called How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk. It's by Adele Faber and Elaine Maslish. So that's kind of a part of our practice is using that skill. And so we've worked with them and created this workshop that we're offering to parents. It really focuses on those communication skills. And the first aspect is dealing with feelings. And it really always goes back to that. We need to learn how to listen to and accept our children's feelings, okay? And everyone says, oh, you need to listen, it's important to listen. But what does it really mean to listen to someone when they're sharing with you? A large part of it is being quiet.
Yeah.
Our kids come to us, I'm all upset, my friend did this to me, I can't believe it, they hate me, everybody hates me, and they're going on and on. And we're very quick to jump in. Oh, it's not that bad. Oh, tell me about it. Oh, that's awful. They did that to you. And we get so wrapped into it and they don't feel heard. A lot of times what they need is us to turn our attention, stop what we're doing, look at them. And one pointer is just acknowledging what they're saying with the word. Oh, and they will spill out their stuff.
And then be quiet. That's the other, the one word and then shut up.
Because a lot of times when they're able to verbalize it, when they feel like you've heard them, and then, sometimes they can't identify a feeling, especially if a child is so upset, no matter what the age, then you can, wow, that sounds really upsetting, or your feelings were hurt. And if you're wrong, they'll correct you. And so as little as acknowledging, responding with a word like, oh, paying attention to them and helping to acknowledge that feeling, a lot of time that's all they need. And then they'll move on with their day. Whereas before you're trying to fix it. You're well, you should do this. Let's problem solve. Let's go through this.
Or you're dousing it. You're putting it.
No, it's not that bad. Oh, that's ridiculous. That's silly. You shouldn't be worried about that. Oh, your friends don't really think that about you. You don't realize what you're doing is negating what they're feeling.
Oh,
we need to accept all feelings. We're going to be sad. We're going to be hurt. We're going to be angry. And those feelings need to be accepted. in order for us to move forward with them, we have to first acknowledge what we're feeling.
Well, I tell a little story that we tell, if it's okay.
Oh, sure.
There was a time when our oldest, I think he was probably 11. Anyway, somewhere, he and his sister had a big blowout of some sort upstairs. And he came down our steps just fussing, just going at it. She did this. I can't believe it. Just really rared up, Now, normally for myself, I would probably have done, and before all of this, I would have said, "Oh, come on, it isn't that bad, just get over it," But I was standing back from it, so I kind of saw them. They didn't really see me, but I was watching them. Well, Gina just kind of stepped back. She went, "Wow, you are really upset. I really want to understand. Tell me a little bit more." And I can still picture my son kind of turning around like, "Are you talking to me?" And the energy, his energy went down probably by about 50%. And he said, well, and he just kind of went on. And she just said, "Well, is there anything else?" And when she was done, she said, "Well, how do you think you could resolve this? Put it all back on him." And he said, "Well, I guess I could go up and talk to her." And she said, "Well, do you need me in there as kind of as referee or, mediator?" And he said, "No." And I swear, 5 minutes later, they were up there giggling with each other.
Oh, wow. What a beautiful result.
Yeah. And so what we tell people is, which would you rather have? Would you rather have a 5 or 10 minute conversation, or would you want to have an hour-long battle?
Yeah.
Right. A lot of times people say, "Oh, it's so much work to learn these skills and to do things differently." And yet it really can be as simple. A lot of it is about being quiet and letting your kids speak and express what they're feeling. Our youngest is very dramatic with everything, and friends do this. And letting her let her feelings out, acknowledging them, helping to identify the feeling, and then giving them the opportunity to come up with a solution, right? We're quick to give our kids answers and solutions, but when they have that opportunity to well, what do you think you could do about that? They come up with the answers, and then they're learning that autonomy. We want our kids to be able to make independent decisions. And so it really all plays together.
I have a tween, so I need this advice.
Well, and the age doesn't matter as much. I mean, it's easier when they're younger, yes, but this can happen at any time. I mean, I've actually worked with parents with adult kids that are having trouble and help them to work through, and communication was a big part of it, so age doesn't matter. Now, it may take a little longer, one, for the parents to learn it, and two, for the kids to kind of go, what are you doing?
You're not trying to fix me.
Yeah.
But yeah, once you start engaging your kids, and they're like, "Oh, they're actually listening to me." And it really can change that relationship and definitely help bring down anxiety, as is so important right now and always.
Yes. So if a parent did one thing today or this week that would decrease anxiety, what would you say that would be?
I would say accepting children's feelings.
Yeah. Listening and
letting them have their feelings, letting them know it's okay no matter what they're feeling.
Being quiet. Yeah, I mean, that's
zip it.
Yeah,
because a kid can come to you with all kinds of stuff and they explode. And then, I mean, I've done it, I've had to consciously think about this too with parenting. And then when I can do that, and then they run off and they're fine. And you're kind of like, whoa,
Well, yeah, it's really hard to be quiet. It's hard not to want to fix and not to solve, but to really pay attention to that.
It can be as simple as that. And with young kids they're having a fit or whatever, helping them to identify those feelings. You're frustrated or you're angry,
putting words
to it for them when they can't do that. Then it's giving them a skill to identify those feelings.
Yeah, and validating those feelings like we already talked about. Thank you again, Dawn and Gina, really. Next week, they'll join us again to cover alternatives to punishment and how that can diffuse a stressful situation. You won't want to miss it. Hey, if anyone hasn't had the chance to leave a review on your podcast player for Short and Sweet Parenting Tips, please do. And don't forget to visit the Short and Sweet Tips Facebook page to find all the extras we post based on our episodes. That's it for short and sweet parenting tips. As always, fresh ideas and bite-sized portions.
So that's it for the first 3 parts of this 6-part series dealing with anxiety during the pandemic. Stay tuned next month for the continuation of this series, where we're going to talk more about how to handle anxiety during pandemic with Short and Sweet Parenting Tips podcast. This concludes this podcast. We hope you will subscribe if you haven't already. Remember, we would love your comments, or if you have a story to tell, we want to put it up on the podcast. Simply go to invisiblewheelchair.com to do that. Don't forget to like us on Facebook at Invisible Wheelchair Podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest, we love guests. So simply go to invisiblewheelchair.com and contact us from there. Gina and I are here to help you or your family get to a better place naturally. Simply visit focusedhealthyfamily.com for more information. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Keep tapping and focusing forward for a better way.